Let's go with Wednesday. We're going to get into our story for today. You can't sit on the back because you're blocking other kids' views. When you get to 50 points and you move your seat, you're more than welcome to. Where you are there, you're in the front, so you're out of luck. So we did the pink, we did the book fair. We'll talk about the assessment here in a moment. That kid's going to totally stay in the circle. And then from there, he'll get the e-learning turned in so I can be nice. What's that?
It still has submitted it online.
Interesting. For the e-learning, at the end we can check again because I went there and refreshed twice and it said there was nothing. I'm not trying to torture you, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. So, as far as this goes, if you want to open up iPad, I can walk you through how the grading of it works. And if you got higher than a 21, go you. You already got a B and you can't really redo it. If you got lower than a 21, you can redo it and get up to a B, and that's fine with me. As you go through it, basically it came down to, for most people, it was going to be the little paragraph, because that was 20 of your 25 points. And a lot of it came down to just the following of directions, thing we've talked about all year. Step one, if you did not know, there's a little grading rubric that's on there. You have to go to the comments section to find your little grading rubric. And then on there is going to explain to you where the 4 parts were. So go on to there, find your little grading rubric. From little grading rubric, you're going to need to compare it to the actual rubric. And so that way we can figure out where you lost the points. Oh, questions on there. The first 5. The biggest issue was the question, I think, number 2, which asked about point of view. That was the biggest missed question. And that's because the very beginning of the story, the narrator says, "Let me tell you a story that happened to me. I will tell you this story." But then, from the rest of the story, it goes into what feels like a different point of view. So what point of view should it have been? First person. I did not create it because I thought that was kind of a tough question, but So that's why that one was probably the most missed question that people seem to struggle on from there. Looking at your rubric, here are the 4 areas that I needed you to be able to go through and do. Your topic sentence, where you tell me which character you would connect with, and then give me a compare and contrast between you and that character, where you had to use actual evidence from the story and your life about why you are like that person. Then you had to tell me how you would act in that situation. How would it be different if you were Melvin? Or how would it be different if you were Priscilla? And so then finally, your clincher, which you could not use the words, "these are the reasons," or "this is why," which was right in there, and some of you did, which cost you points. You would then sort of wrap everything up by bringing it together. Melvin is a sissy like me, and we both tend to cry when people come and threaten us. Whatever it's going to be that you connect back to the rest of the story. That's all I'm looking for you to do. If you want to redo it, it is now available for you to go in there, and you are welcome to redo it. Make sure you take a look at the story so you have some idea of making the connections. This is one that I can send out to you if you need it, but basically what it's going to tell you is first sentence. You're going to give me a good first sentence. That should be only information in there is about you connecting to whoever that character is. I had some people who just rambled in their first sentence. I mean, you can write a good first sentence. From Priscilla and the Wimps, Melvin is the character that I feel the closest to. That's a good sentence. If you just put "me be Melvin," that's not so good. So I was looking for you to give me information so it makes sense. Sentences 2 and 3, connecting Melvin to your life and who you are, and the fact that you curl into a ball and cry, or you get shut into lockers where some kid beats you up in the hallway all the time or something. And then the sentences 4 and 5, about how you would act in that situation, like Melvin's a wussy, but I would punch them in the throat because my English teacher told me how to go yank right into this office. And then you would have to make the little explanation thing. And then finally, give me a conclusion where you bring it all together. Then you resubmit it. I will grade it automatically. You do not even have to email me. The drawback is I just won't do it until Friday. And then at that point, you'll be good to go. Questions as far as that goes? Yay! It's up to you. It's already on Skyward. If you're happy with your grade, so am I. If you want to redo it, you can get all the way up to the 21, and then I'm more than happy to regrade it and resubmit it for you. Then you can put iPad away. And we're going to take a look at the So the story that you guys got yesterday, after 20 years, the small blue paper, that is the one that's going to be for quiz coming up on Friday. Big blue paper, this is the one we're going to be reading together. And I did not give you the end of the story, just so that you are aware. Also, the end of the story, do you guys remember the Lady and the Tiger story?
Yeah.
How it just ended, and you guys got all like and frustrated?
No. Yes.
This one does the same thing.
Yeah.
But I told you I wasn't going to give you a story like that again, and I did not lie. This story uses foreshadowing and clues for you to figure out what happens in the story. There is a definite ending. We find out whether it is Lady or the Tiger in the story using all those foreshadowing clues throughout the whole thing. I will not leave you hanging. There is a definite thing that happens in this story. By the way, for Friday's quiz, since I did have kids say that they thought the last review guide was helpful, I have made a review guide and posted it on there. And so it goes through and talks about irony, it talks about after 20 years, and it's going to talk about Landlady to try to help you out as far as that goes. Ooh, we talked about foreshadowing, since it's going to help with this story. What's foreshadowing?
Clues. Like something in the story.
So, in my order, suspense. And then foreshadowing. What the? Where's my foreshadowing? What the? Who put it? Stupid computer, never mind. You're correct. Foreshadowing are the clues that are going to help you figure out what happens. What's suspense then?
Something that makes you jump off a cliff. That's what I do.
No, that's called a friend pushing. But that's a good try. Yeah.
I'll push you.
So suspense apparently is where we keep waiting to find out if foreshadowing is going to pop up, and we go, nope, it's not there yet. Now he goes, I got it? Nope. Suspense is the part that keeps. That was suspense. When you were trying to figure out why I was trying to look at a kid, I was trying to build suspense. It's the thing that keeps you interested to find out what's going to happen next. Sometimes it's in a story, sometimes it's in a classroom with a creepy teacher. What part of the mountain will the suspense be on?
Rising action.
It should be the rising action, because that's where we get excited. Not the falling action, because there's no more suspense. Climax shouldn't be suspense. Climax, you're like, oh my Sigma! And you're freaking out about what's happening there. So hopefully that'll help you out. Now does foreshadowing show up? Now foreshadowing shows up. Anyway.
Way to go, Mr. Brovicast.
This story has suspense in it, but it takes a little bit to get there. And a lot of it will come off the foreshadowing. Those of you who start to pick up on the foreshadowing clues, you're going to pick up something's happening. I don't want to give anything away, but something's happening, and you'll start to figure it out.
Someone gets murdered.
Shh! No, I'm giving you a normal story for once.
No.
Billy dies.
Wow.
I think Billy dies. I'm gonna
You
get
can't kill Bill for everything.
I want somebody to die.
All right. I'll work in a death for you then. Well, maybe not in here. Maybe it's in here. Oh, wait, I'm recording. Just kidding.
That's not funny.
In here.
What for who?
All right.
Billy's gonna
So,
die.
taking a look at Landlady. Ooh. One, I do have some Brovy art all throughout this to help you out. I also have brought in a show and tell item that's going to go along with the story too. And apparently, I'll try to work in someone dying at some point. You all need therapy. That's kind of what I thought. So, starting off, do you guys know what a landlady is?
A lady who lives on land.
Do you guys know what a landlord is?
Yes.
What's a landlord?
Like,
Okay. So then, what's a landlady then? Yeah. So landlord, dude who owns property that you have to pay rent to. Landlady then would be the female version of that. So that's what a landlady is. Not a woman who lives on land, who's not a mermaid. That would be most of you. But a landlady, own a place, stuff like that. All right.
I'm a landlady.
As we get into it, what part of the mountain is at the start of every story? So exposition, not super long, but you're going to figure out again characters in the story, where it's taking place, stuff like that. Billy Weaver, Billy Weaver had traveled down from London on the slow afternoon train with a change at Reading on the way. And by the time he got to Bath, it was about 9 o'clock in the evening. The moon was coming up out of a clear, starry sky over the houses opposite the station entrance. But the air was deadly cold, and the wind was like a flat blade of ice on his cheeks. "Excuse me," he said, "but is there a fairly cheap hotel not too far away from here?" "Try the Bell and Dragon," the porter answered, pointing down the road. "They might take you in. It's about a quarter of a mile along on the other side." Billy thanked him, picked up his suitcase, and set out on the walk the quarter mile to the Bell and Dragon. By the way, coolest name for a hotel ever, Bell and Dragon. Much better than Hyatt Regency or something like that. He had never been to Bath before. He didn't know anyone who lived there, but Mr. Greenslade at the head office in London had told him, gesundheit, it was a splendid city. "Find your own lodgings," he said, "and then go along and report to the branch manager as soon as you've got yourself settled." Billy was 17 years old. He was wearing a new navy blue overcoat, a new brown trilby hat, and a new brown suit. And he was feeling fine. He walked briskly down the street. He was trying to do everything briskly these days. Briskness, he had decided, was the one common characteristic of all successful businessmen. The big shots up at head office were absolutely fantastically brisk all the time. They were amazing. Quick pause. Who's our character so far?
Billy.
What do we know about Billy?
Billy.
He likes to read. He's 17.
He's 17, so makes it a different Billy than this Billy. There's more than one out there.
He lives on 1, 2, 9. Is his name Bill? Last name Lee?
That is a different Billy. What's this Billy's last name? Lee. So not Bill, Lee. And then, how old did you say he was? 17. And then, where is it taking place?
Bath.
So what country is that?
England?
France.
Norway.
Got scary there.
Australia.
Yeah, that's in England. London is the capital of England. Bath is just a town in England. It doesn't mean when you sit in the water and go splash splash. It's an actual name for sitting. It's the name for an actual town. And so he is heading to this place in Bath from London, and we don't know why he's there yet. Some businessy thing. Oh, and a trilby hat. I had to look up a trilby hat. I had no idea. It looks kind of like what that Indiana Jones guy wears. Kind of like a fedora, I guess. I don't know. I can't really tell the difference. According to the internet, they said there's a definite difference between a fedora and a trilby hat. And I went, okay. But that's what they said it looked like, so I don't know. There were no shops in this wide street that he was walking along. Only a line of tall houses on each side, all of them identical. They had porches and pillars and 4 or 5 steps going up to their front doors, and it was obvious that once upon a time they'd been very swanky residences. By now, even in the darkness, he could see that the paint was peeling from the woodwork on their doors and windows, and that the handsome white facades were cracked and blotchy from neglect. Suddenly, in a downstairs window that was brilliantly illuminated by a street lamp not 6 yards away, Billy caught sight of a printed notice propped up against the glass in one of the upper panes. It said, "Bed and breakfast." There was a vase of flowers, tall and beautiful, standing just underneath the notice. He stopped walking, moved a bit closer. Green curtains, some sort of velvety material, were hanging down on either side of the window. The flowers looked wonderful beside them. He went right up and peered through the glass into the room, and the first thing he saw was a bright fire burning in the hearth. On the carpet in front of the fire, a pretty little dachshund was cuddled up asleep with its nose tucked into its belly. The room itself, so far as he could see in the half darkness, was filled with pleasant furniture. There was a baby grand piano, a big sofa, several plump armchairs, and in one corner he spotted a large parrot in a cage. Animals were usually a good sign in a place like this, Billy told himself. And all in all, it looked to him as though it would be a pretty decent house to stay in. Certainly be more comfortable than the Bell and Dragon. All right, quick pause to explain things. One, do you guys know what a dachshund is?
dog.
It's a little wiener dog. And
It's
so
like
he's
what's in Curious
looking in the
George.
window and he sees little wiener dog sitting in there. Do you guys know what a bed and breakfast is?
It's like
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
like
So-
a hotel for like adults and it's like fancier usually and it's like
a hotel that gives you breakfast.
and it's like
Yeah.
usually in a house.
So now we have more of the Airbnb type thing, but before it was Airbnb, it was just the idea that a person would rent out rooms in their house and stay there. And so instead of going to a hotel, you would just go and stay in someone's like extra rooms in their house, and then oftentimes because you were staying there, they would make you food like breakfast and stuff like that. And it was a bit more homey and more relaxed as opposed to like the sterileness of going to a hotel. So this is what he sees as he's going along, and he's on his way to the hotel. Best name ever, Bell and Dragon. And he sees this little bed and breakfast, peeks in the window, sees like a little dachshund, also sees a
Flower pot.
parrot.
Parrot.
Saw a parrot in there. Sorry, brain issues. When he says it's a good sign when he sees animals in a place like this, what does that mean?
There's
Keep
people.
them alive.
They eat
Yeah.
animals.
There's nice
Because in like a hotel, which is like a professional place, you're staying in someone's house and you don't want to be with like a creeper. And if like you look through the window and there's like, I don't know, like something like stabbed against the wall and you're like, no, and you keep going. But here you're like, oh, it's like a cute little puppy on the ground. It's like a little parrot.
The
Like,
puppy
all right,
is a
it's-
deadly puppy.
Yeah.
It kills
Or
its owner.
yes, you never know when a dachshund might come at you and like tear down your ankles.
Me personally, I could pet dachshund and it always
Oh, we're not there yet. So he's deciding the only problem is typically bed and breakfasts are way more expensive than a hotel because you're staying in someone's actual house and it's like much nicer linens. So oftentimes it's more money. And again, how old is Billy?
17.
So there's every chance he's not wanting to spend fat cash. On the other hand, a pub, which is what the Bell and Dragon is, oftentimes it would have like a bar downstairs and then like rooms above it. A pub would be more congenial than a boarding house. There would be beer and darts in the evenings and lots of people to talk to. It would probably be a good bit cheaper too. He'd stayed a couple of nights in a pub once before. He liked it. He'd never stayed in any boarding houses, and to be perfectly honest, he was a tiny bit frightened of them. The name itself conjured up images of watery cabbage, greedy landladies, and a powerful smell of fish in the living room. What he's complaining about is like when you go to like a friend's house and it has weird smells and stinks to it that you're not used to. That's what he's worried about, staying at like a random person's bed and breakfast and having like a weird person there. After dithering about like this in the cold for 2 or 3 minutes, Billy decided that he'd walk on and take a look at the Bell and Dragon before making up his mind. He turned to go. And now a queer thing happened to him. He was in the act of stepping back and turning away from the window, and all at once his eye was caught and held in the most peculiar manner by the small notice that was there. Bed and breakfast. It said bed and breakfast. Each word was like a large black eye staring at him through the glass, holding him, compelling him, forcing him to stay where he was and not to walk away from that house. And the next thing he knew, he was actually moving across from the window to the front door of the house, climbing the steps that led up to it, reaching for the bell. He pressed the bell. Far away in a back room, he heard it ringing. Ding, dong. And then at once, it must have been at once, because he hadn't even had time to take his finger away from the bell. Even had time to take his finger from the bell button, the door swung open, and a woman was standing there. Now, normally, you ring the bell and you have at least a half-minute's wait before the door opens. But this dame was like a jack-in-the-box. He pressed the bell and out she popped. It made him jump. She was about 45 or 50 years old, and the moment she saw him, she gave him a warm, welcoming smile. "Please come in," she said pleasantly. No. She stepped aside, holding the door wide open, and Billy found himself automatically starting forward into the house. The compulsion, or more accurately, the desire to follow after her into that house was extraordinarily strong. So I just need to point out a couple things, but I need to make sure you don't try to read too much into it. I just need to make sure you understand what's happening. So he was going to walk away, but then he comes back to this place as the bed and breakfast. Rings the doorbell. What happens when he rings doorbell? Why does that throw him off?
Because like usually happens.
So what does that imply to you?
That she's a witch.
She's desperate.
I can see that. I was gonna go more for that she was on the other side of the door, but you guys seem to read a bit more into that with the
Waiting to kill him.
that again seems like you're reading a bit much into it. I was sure that seems a bit more. Again, this is where he rings the bell, and as soon as it goes ding, she opens the door. He's like, ah, dong, and pulls the finger back, and she's right there. And so again, she might be lonely. Now, I will tell you, when I started first reading this story years ago, I used to tell all my students that she was this old lady that was in there. How old is she?
45.
Yeah, about 45 or 50 years old. Being as that I'm now roughly 48-ish, I no longer think she's an old lady. This young woman who is in this story now has opened up the door to interact with him. And so we're going to find out that she might be a little odd, but there's nothing wrong with people who are older being a little odd. Sometimes older people tend to be odd.
She's a wrinkly skin and a mole on her nose.
Wow. I mean, not every person between 45 and 50 has wrinkly skin. Keep going from there.
Okay.
Oh, there's compulsion all the time. I saw the notice in the window, he said, holding himself back. Yes, I know. I was wondering about a room. It's all ready for you, my dear, she said. She had a round pink face and very gentle blue eyes. I was on my way to the Bell and Dragon, but the notice in your window it happened to catch my eye. My dear boy, why don't you come in out of the cold? Well, how much do you charge? 5 and 6 pence a night, including breakfast. I have no idea how much that is, because where is this taking place? One, taking place in London, which is in England, and 2, we're going to find out it took place about 50 years ago. And so I have no idea how that converts. Yeah. Anyway, all I know is the next line says, it was fantastically cheap. It was less than half of what he'd been willing to pay. So again, his worry was that this place would be more expensive. Turns out, even cheaper. Win-win. If that's too much, she added, then perhaps I can reduce it just a tiny bit. Do you desire an egg for breakfast? Eggs are expensive at the moment. It would be 6 pence less without the egg. No, 5 and 6 pence is fine. I should like very much to stay here. I knew you would. Do come in. She seemed terribly nice. She looked exactly like the mother of one's best school friend, welcoming one into the house to stay for the Christmas holidays. Billy took off his hat and stepped over the threshold. Not saying she is one of his friend's moms, saying that that's the impression he gets. If you've ever gone over to a friend's house and their mom is like, come on in, dear, we'd love to have you over and stay. And you're like, thank you, Mrs. Jones. And she's like, now you call me Mary. And you're like, okay, Mary. That's like the feeling that he's getting as he's walking in, like that kind of overall kind of friendship thing. And now for the bad news. We have to stop there.
Yes. Why did you start the story?
What was that word I had to teach you right before we started it? Suspense. We haven't even gotten to the suspense yet. This is just the suspense waiting for the suspense.
Yeah, so you gotta use patience.
Again, your homework is to not read the story, especially because I didn't give you the end of it. So you would get really confused on where this one stops.
I'm gonna read it.
You horrible child not doing your homework.